The reveal for Spacetime Smackdown, the newest set to be released in Pokemon Pocket on January 29th or 30th for Japan, also came with the reveal of 12 cards that the set contains, including a secret card revealed by Cerebi.net, not the reveal trailer. Here are my thoughts on how the game will adapt to the set release. That secret card is going to shake the meta up. My name is Ray, welcome to the Red Panda. While not the first card revealed, Pachirisu EX is, to me, the most notable card as it reveals a collection of cards that will be included in this set. Tool cards. Low-hanging fruit options are cards that boost damage by a small amount like plus 10, or HP by a small amount. My guess would be a plus 20 card. Assuming the small damage boost card is given, Pachirisu EX will be very comparable to a Pikachu EX, potentially providing an alternate option to the quick lightning decks that we are all familiar with. This will also allow an alternative pairings to the Pikachu deck, as you won't be required to utilize Lightning-type Pokemon on your bench. Many have experimented with a Jolteon add-on to Pikachu, but found that the colorless Eevee hinders the consistency of Pikachu EX, an issue that won't exist for Pachirisu. With that said, this deck will instead require several cards in your already quite limited deck to be tool cards, and if those tool cards don't provide enough flexibility and power to the deck, Pachirisu EX may be left on the sideline in favor of more traditional Pikachu variants. I believe Pachirisu's A tier. Next, I want to cover Palkia EX. The high energy cost of the Dimensional Storm plus the heavy discard element leaves much to be desired, and the single energy slash attack also is weak enough that I'm left wondering what problem is being solved by this card. While I do anticipate some experimentation with the card, similar to what we saw with Lapras EX's release, I fully expect this card to be immediately thrown in the bin in favor of better options like Articuno EX. I believe it's F tier. Leafeon is challenging to evaluate due to the retreat cost being hidden, and there are only assumptions that the trailing bit of the effect is cannot attack. But such a limitation on a Stage 1 Pokemon means that Leafeon will demand retreats in order to cycle the effect off or protect the low HP count. Referencing my experience with Jolteon, having 90 HP while requiring 2 energies ultimately means that Leafeon will be challenging to keep alive and utilize the heavy damage the attack provides. Ultimately, if you're wanting to run a grass deck, you'll opt for an alternative strategy rather than quickly hitting for 90 damage, and if you want to hit something quickly for 90 damage, you'll lean more towards the Starmie EX than Leafeon, even with the double prize rule box. I think Leafeon's an F tier card. Chimchar and Gribble both seem like relatively basic Pokemon, and Turtwig only brings its unusual high... Chimchar and Gribble both seem like relatively simple basic Pokemon, and Turtwig only brings an unusually high HP count to the table. Piplup's Snap Attack is unique to it, but it isn't strong on its own. These 4 should not be rated without their evolutions being revealed, but feel free to speculate in the comments what you think the fully evolved EX variants will bring to the table, though I don't think Garchomp will be EX. Honchkro's effect isn't quite revealed, and the Japanese version has 1 retreat instead of 2. With that said, I know it's dealing 50 damage to either any Pokemon or bench Pokemon. Too many elements are up in the air to give a fair rating to the card, but I suspect that it will see limited play without a core attacker up front, and that will rely on it being a 1 retreat minimum to give it the flexibility to cycle around. I personally believe that unless the meta forces a bench hitter to be included in decks, much like Magikarp is doing now, this card will be limited to experimental decks. I believe it's C tier. The fan favorite Cynthia, much like Brock, will rely on the power level of Garchomp and Togekiss to establish its rating on the meta basis, but on its own the effect is incredibly powerful and will likely be a forced inclusion to any deck that has those Pokemon. Keep in mind that it is unlikely this effect will include the EX variations of Garchomp or Togekiss, though we haven't had a chance to test this yet. We do know that the effect that lists a named EX will not work on a non-EX variant, and that the traditional paper card does see EX Pokemon as their own entity, requiring cards to explicitly call for EXs to affect EXs. A tier on its own merits. Cressilia's 50 damage from Moonlight Gain in addition to its healing is fairly respectable, but the energy cost leaves me wondering how it fits into decks today. Florges has had seen experimentation but little tournament results, and Cressilia's introduction will force Florges out of that zone into the bin. But will force the question, Was Florges' problem due to it being a Stage 2 Pokemon, or was the damage to energy ratio the problem all along? I think Cresselia will be C tier. The best two for last. Lucario brings a boost to fighting decks across the board and will see successes. With the potential plus 40 boost to any and all attacks done by fighting Pokemon, you're going to see a huge improvements to Primeape, Hitmonchan, Dugtrio, Golem, Marowak EX, Kabutops, Marshadow, and Aerodactyl EX decks. I fully anticipate many of these decks jumping up a 1 to 2 tiers of quality compared to their Mythical Island variants. Personally, I predict a new Zoo archetype developing, especially leaning into the fossil options to improve the odds of Pokeball grabbing Riolu. Expect to see plenty of Lucario on launch day and throughout the A2 meta. I think it's S tier. Dialga EX closes out the reveal set as a massive support card for Steel decks. Functioning as a slower but more consistent Moltres EX, this Pokemon will ramp up heavy hitters on the bench with 3 energy per turn and will be ready to retreat once your bench is ready to be unleashed, or if the heat is just too much for Dialga. Much like Moltres EX, you should expect Dialga EX to be included in every Steel-type deck. Keep in mind that Dialga EX does not require the bench Pokemon to be Steel-type, meaning that a colorless attack like seen with Pidgeot EX and Mew EX can also be ramped up fairly easily. The second attack allows for flexibility if the deck decides to work against you, dealing enough damage to handle almost anything that isn't an EX or Stage 2. That wraps it up for today's video. I'm personally incredibly excited to try both Dialga EX and Lucario. What Gen 4 Pokemon are you hoping to see in EX variant? Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Have a good one.